What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. And today I've gathered up some insane stories I found on Reddit about teachers just freaking out or them having to deal with entitled parents, that type of stuff. I think it's going to be a good collection you guys are going to really enjoy. It's a pretty long video, so press the like button, and without further ado, let's get into it. In 7th grade, my science teacher got tired of girls in my class and started yelling. He got so mad that he grabbed a keyboard from the computer and threw it. No one was hit, and he left class and no one knew what to do. I think he got suspended or fired or something, but he came back later in the year and apologized to everyone. It's all fun and games until your teacher decides to start throwing the keyboard like an angry Fortnite player. You know, you and your friends are just talking. There's an explosion of keys above your head as the keyboard smashes into the wall. I'm not surprised he ended up getting suspended or something. I feel like throwing keyboards at a student is a pretty good reason to make him reevaluate his teaching career choice. 7th grade history teacher. Super nerdy and generally a good guy, but had issues controlling the class. One day during morning announcements and the Pledge of Allegiance, the class clown would not stop talking and making jokes. After yelling at him multiple times, the teacher stands up from his desk and screams, "I've had it," and throws an enormous blueberry muffin that had been sitting on his desk. Time seemed to stop as the class watched the breakfast treat sail through the air towards the whiteboard across the classroom. The muffin was obliterated on impact, showering part of the room with blueberries and moist cake. Most of the class burst out laughing, and the teacher stormed out, not to be seen for the rest of the day. The next day, he returns to class to apologize and brought along donut holes for the class. The class clown immediately sees this and shouts, "What are you gonna do, throw it at us?" Cue uproarious laughter and a lecture about respecting the administration. For the rest of the year, the teacher was known as Muffin Thrower or Mr. Muff. I guess, like, in the teacher's mind, you know, throwing something's going to be a super intimidating move to make everyone shut up, but if there's anything you can throw that's the opposite of intimidating, I feel like it's a blueberry muffin. Like this guy said, watching a muffin just smack into a wall and explode into some moist cake doesn't seem like something that would make me fearful. I'd probably start laughing too. As for the class clown who wouldn't stop making jokes, all you did was give him more ammunition, man. You basically just freaked out and said, "Enough!" throwing a blueberry muffin. He's literally going to make fun of you till the end of time now. Mrs. Jackson, let me start off by saying that I am disgusted at the school system. Working parents should not have to be teachers. That's why you all get paid. I get home and see my child is failing, and that's ridiculous. It's your job to make sure they understand. How is she failing every course except math and science? Please explain before I go higher up the chain. Good afternoon. I'm so sorry that you're unsatisfied with the school system. The time is difficult for us all, as stated. I'm your child's teacher. Much like I would not have the ability to physically drive your child to school, I do not have the ability to wake your child up and put them on the computer. My role, as you stated, is to teach, and your role is to have your child ready to learn in a safe, quiet environment with supplies. On multiple occasions, I have called, dropped messages, texted, and even come to your home because we have been unable to contact you or even lay eyes on your child for orientation. I understand your frustration. Please understand my frustration. Your child has not submitted one assignment since August, and she has not attended one meeting. She received a 65 in math and science off principle of grace because I do believe she has the ability to do better than that. Her reading and social study grades are handled by another teacher, and I cannot speak for her. Okay, well, for future reference, I would appreciate if you do not contact my husband on Class Dojo. That's inappropriate and uncalled for. I handle her schoolwork, and the two of you should have no private conversation. Your husband was contacted because his information was given to me. No conversation has ever been inappropriate, and on 8 different occasions, I have attempted to reach you. You gave us his information in the event we could not reach you, and if you would like his information removed, please contact the office to remove it, and I will make a note as well for future reference. I just don't want you contacting him. I'm not comfortable, and I'll let him know as well. If my child is not on the computer, it is my expectation that you'll call me and let me know daily. I don't have time to keep up with her and all this work. Again, I'm not her teacher, and if you're going to give out zeros, I expect you to come here and help her. That's all. As much as I would love to do that, ma'am, that's not feasible. I have 54 students and cannot call the parents of every student who's not logged on daily. To avoid any further confusion, can you set up an in-person meeting with administration to go over expectations? Please let me know a date and time that works for you, and I'll work around your schedule. Thank you. If I needed a meeting, I would have asked for one. Do as I ask and we won't have any issues. My daughter will not fail because you're being lazy. Ma'am, have a good night. The principal will be following up with you tomorrow. Alright, so I'm not a parent, but I've never understood why parents would want to take this approach when talking to their kid's teacher, because all you're gonna do is piss off the teacher and really make them dislike your kid. And the fact you expect the teacher to do something about your kid not logging into class is ridiculous. I mean, sure, I guess they could let you know, but what, you want them to somehow motivate your kid to wake up on time and go to school? I think that's part of the parenting part of the equation. Why is my daughter not waking up on time? I don't know, man. That seems like your problem. 100% your problem. I have no control over anything your kid does other than trying to teach them math. It's just gonna make you and your kid's year way longer when the teacher just dislikes you guys now. The year I was in 3rd grade was one of the best and worst of my entire educational experience, and both of the extremes were because of the teacher I had. She was beloved by most of the students, the female ones especially, but had a habit of being passive-aggressive and chagrined towards more difficult pupils. She'd find or invent reasons to ignore difficult questions, often vague threats about impending punishments, or make small efforts to turn classmates against one another. She was not an especially likable educator, and she became truly reprehensible once when she insisted Jupiter was bigger than the sun. At first, it just seemed like a misunderstanding. Our class had just entered into an astronomy unit, and one of our activities was to construct a scale model of the solar system. The reference image we used came from a book, and in it the sun had been reduced in size, and the teacher had not noticed this and was therefore operating under the mistaken assumption that Jupiter was our largest celestial neighbor. Well, I knew better and tried to correct her, and she replied with me with a tone of aloof dismissal, stating quite clearly that I was wrong. That's okay though, she said. After all, you're in school to learn new things. She then smiled sweetly, and I returned to my seat feeling thoroughly confused and frustrated. In the weeks that followed, I engaged in all-out war against my teacher's pseudoscience. My father, having heard everything from me, sent me to school with his college textbooks, hoping to turn the tide of my battle. My teacher refused to even look at it. Class, she said, rolling her eyes, who can tell Max what the biggest object in the solar system is? My face was burning with anger and shame as every other student shouted, Jupiter! Things only escalated from there. I refused to back down despite having been labeled as the class dunce. Each time the topic came up, I tried to offer my evidence, and each time I was steadfastly opposed by everyone within earshot. Finally, after over a month of torment, our astronomy unit culminated in a field trip to the local planetarium. The show was a breathtaking adventure through our galaxy and universe beyond, and left me feeling infinitesimally small, yet strangely empowered. As the lights came up, our guide to the cosmos asked if there were any questions. Which is bigger? I shouted, jumping to my feet. Jupiter or the sun? My entire class sighed in frustration, and my teacher barked to sit down, and the astronomer looked confused. The sun, of course, he scoffed. A hush fell over the room, and after a moment of utter silence, a girl named Melissa spoke up in a condescending tone. Well, sir, we have a chart that says Jupiter is bigger. The astronomer looked at her, he looked at my teacher, and looked at me with an expression of sympathy. Little girl, he said, returning his attention to Melissa. If you look at the picture again, you'll see the sun is being shown at a fraction of its actual size. Otherwise, it wouldn't fit on the page. His gaze moved to his next victim, who had slumped down in her chair as to be almost as small as her students. Your teacher should have told you that. Upon returning to the classroom, all the students crowded around the reference book. Sure enough, a tiny block of text explained the sun had been scaled down in the illustration. I declared my triumph, having been finally vindicated, and no one apologized, and my teacher found new reasons to punish me, and I was treated with no small amount of scorn. But I didn't care. From that day forward, I knew to never be afraid of asking questions or standing up for facts in favor of fiction. From that day forward, at least until it was taken away, I proudly wore my homemade dunce cap with a smug grin. Dude, that is next level embarrassing. Oh my goodness. Just teaching a class of like third graders that the sun is smaller than Jupiter and just being so confident that you're making people feel stupid when they dare to question you. You know, when the astronomer said the sun was bigger, she had to have felt as small as a human being can possibly feel in that situation, just pure embarrassment. The fact she never apologized sucks, though. The least she could have done is said, "Hey man, I'm really sorry for making fun of you for the entire year and basically encouraging everyone to call you a moron for simply questioning something you knew to be true." 8th grade English. Well, I was a sort of middle school TA. Basically, each 7th grade teacher picked one 8th grader that they had previously had in class, and we used an elective period to sit and assist with this class. I signed up to the program in hopes of spending an hour a day doing nothing, but plot twist, this teacher apparently acquired some rageous use over the summer, and midway through our second week of class that year, the 7th graders were filing in the room for lunch, chatting and joking around, and Mr. R, as we can call him, decided the room was too loud. He started softly mumbling passive-aggressive crap like, "Or we will all be raging toddlers that can't quiet down, and let's just be as loud as possible." I heard him because I was at his desk, and 4 feet away, the kids obviously did not. He continued for maybe 2 to 3 minutes, and again, the students were doing nothing out of the ordinary, and he suddenly gets red-faced, takes his Caucasian, literature-appreciating bare hands, slams it down on the glass screen portion of the overhead projector. For those of you that don't remember, projectors had a piece of thick glass to ride on, placed above a light bulb underneath. And the thing exploded. Glass is flying everywhere, and the pressure of the glass bulb popping sounded like a small bomb going off. Being 2002, the class reacted like an attack happened because after the noise, all they saw was Mr. R holding up a bloody fist and glass strewn about their desk. The teacher just stared at his hand and then at the class and then bolted out of the room, and my brain was like, "What happened? Get out of here." But I decided to play the role of orchestra on the Titanic and casually turned on Finding Nemo and shrugged at the 30 bewildered faces of 12-year-olds. Mr. R came back about 5 minutes before class ended and silently sat down at his desk, bloody nub hand wrapped up in gauze and bandages. And he didn't say a word, and we never spoke of it again. No idea who cleaned up the shrapnel, but I fled the scene with the rest of the class when the bell rang, and Nemo ended up being found. Bro, how embarrassing. "I'm angry, breaks the projector. How did he explain having to purchase that to the principal? "Hey, we're gonna need a new really expensive projector. I understand our school budget is probably 3 goldfish and 4 Lay's chips, but I'm gonna need a couple $100 to buy a new one. I got really mad and smashed it." I love how he was so ashamed he just literally never spoke about it again. Forget addressing it, forget, even acknowledging it happened. Just wrap your hand in gauze, come back to class, and pretend it never happened. There you go. I'm sure this rumor got around the school really quick. They were like, "Yo, some dude smacked his projector and ended up cutting up his hand. It was absolutely disgusting." Not quite a parent-teacher conference, but it was after I got my first cell flip phone long ago when they were just coming out. An 8th grader ended up stealing it, and my wife called the phone, and the guy who answered was dumb enough to give her his name, and it was a parent who was using it. The kid confessed to taking it, and the parents came in, and the admin confronted the parents about it, explaining that they just wanted the phone back. The parents tore into the kid for confessing that he took the phone and told him his birthday was canceled for ratting on them. Wait, so his parents weren't mad about him stealing the phone from his teacher? They were just more mad about the fact that he told on them? Wow, I feel really bad for this dude. I feel like life is giving you a very crappy deck of cards when they make your parents just this dumb. "Oh, son, why would you rat on me? We were supposed to steal from your teacher together." What a great example. I'm sure your son has learned so many great things from you. Entitled parent thinks teachers should work 24/7. So as stated, I'm a teacher. I teach 6th through 8th grade in the United States public school system, so English is my first language. This is about all the hoopla about mobile phones, etc., all that stuff. So I've been teaching this year a simultaneous hybrid model, meaning I'm teaching via Zoom while I have half my students tuning into Zoom and the other half sitting in the classroom with me. It's whatever, I managed until 2 major events happen. I'm extremely immune compromised thanks to being back on chemo, and luckily it's not too bad for me, but one of the major side effects is a heart event, which I had and was hospitalized for a while, then returned home and to school because I love the kids. Once I returned a few weeks later, I got COVID, as did my family, so I've been teaching via Zoom while a sub or an adult body in my classroom is sitting there with the kids. But again, they get the information and education they deserve, and with COVID, I only took off 3 days because I love my students and could wear my pajama bottoms and teach. All this to say, my grading was a little bit behind from where it should have been. Not horrible, but maybe 1 week behind, and I updated it all this week. It's also the end of the half semester and the end of the whole semester. And needless to say, kids are a bit frantic in general. Even with teachers who have been up to date 100% of the time, they get late work turned in, and we were mandated to accept all late work without penalty up until Friday or the last day of the semester this coming week. Now, this wasn't my first rodeo, and I know kids always ask for extra credit at the last minute, so I had the bright idea to post extra credit on our school website to specify in my area. I did this in October, and I added to it in November and the first week in December. I mentioned it every week too, yet kids are kids and humans procrastinate, so I have to answer calls and emails over the weekend. And it's mandated we do this for 1 hour, one time over the weekend, either Friday, Saturday, or Sunday. But I often do it as they come in. I can access my account through my phone, but given how sick we all are, I've limited it to 1 hour, Saturday morning at 7 a.m. I went to bed, and on Saturday at 7 a.m. I opened my emails, and there were 12 from an entitled parent, 6 from an entitled son, and 2 from an entitled aunt. Great, this should be fun. The parent and son are mad that I didn't ask how high when they said jump and respond to their emails because he has a C+ and wants an A. What does he need to do? I don't know. And then the aunt was CC'd on these emails, and the aunt asked in her email if I got the emails, and email too to CC them when I respond. The aunt has been extra nitpicky with me this year because of what the mentioned above absences. But whatever, I follow the rule of thumb and follow all district contract rules and policy. My response was this at 7:13 a.m. on Saturday. Dear son and parent, I've received a combined 27 texts and emails from you on Friday. Thank you for being understanding when I say, unfortunately, I wasn't able to respond until today because I had prior engagements. I did see that your son has 4 missing assignments that can still be done, and there are how-to videos attached to the assignments on the school website page under my class if he needs help before Monday. I also have 6 extra credit assignments posted that the son is welcome to do as well, combining this with the late work, which you could review the online gradebook and look for the red box with a 0 in it to find, and I've also attached the titles and dates when these were due along with the links to turn them in. This should put your son over the top. Thank you, and if there's any further questions, I can be contacted at the school number or via methods you already used Monday at 6 a.m. The son wrote back, I don't want to do them, isn't there something else I can do? And CC'd the mom and the aunt, so I actually couldn't respond back with reply all saying, wow, you caught me just before my office hours were over. Unfortunately, there's nothing further I can offer you for extra credit, but I can help you. I'll even do a one-on-one Zoom Monday if you struggle. I'll talk to you on Monday about this option, but have a good weekend. I'm gonna drive to the tree festival tonight when it gets dark because we can stay in our cars. Hint, hint, I'm busy, kid. Mom immediately writes back, he doesn't like the options you gave us. Give us different options. This is ridiculous. I pay taxes. You work for me. You need to answer when I message you. Blah, blah, blah. Asking me to wait until the next day is stupid. She wrote it like that. I'm your boss and I'm copying the aunt and you'll get in trouble for not offering the son other options. The son should not have to do stuff that the aunt doesn't like. I laugh at this, but do not respond because she sent it after 8:45 a.m. after all. I get an actual phone call from the aunt at 9:06 a.m. saying, "Can you please tell me what's going on here?" And I respond that the son has missing work and did not like any of the 6 options I had for extra credit to bring the grade from a C to an A. And the aunt says, "Find something else or offer a one-on-one Zoom Sunday." And I said, "No, I'm busy Sunday and I have COVID that I worked through and already have done my hour. I offered blank as extra credit. What do you think I should offer instead?" And he said, "Maybe you can call the son and see what he wants to do." I said that I would send one more email and CC her so that way we'd all be on the same page. The son and the parent had actually already talked to the entitled aunt, unbeknownst to me, and the parent responded that I had to come to her house and give him one-on-one lessons, and the son wants them to be fun, so maybe something about Fortnite. Maybe I could play Fortnite while they go out to dinner. Great, now I'm being told to be a free babysitter, and I'm not allowed to tell anyone I have COVID, so I can't use that as an excuse. And I respond that that will not work and is not a good substitute for educational work. The aunt said I should consider it and think of it as a bonding experience for my student and myself, and maybe not during dinner time because mom and dad should probably witness it. Again, I said no, per my contract I do not and will not do that, and I'm not going to reply further until Monday, and I already have my union rep coming in on this. This, my friends, is what happened when you teach a Title I school and you have a handful of rich kids the admin wants to appease. I'm assuming because their tax money funds mean more than the rest of my kids' parents combined. Now it's 1:34 a.m. and I can't stop worrying about tomorrow. Nah, this is insane. You gotta switch schools or something after this, dude. You give them 6 options, they don't like any of them, and their alternative is you come over and babysit their kid and play Fortnite while they go out to dinner. In what world is that a good reason to bring someone from a C+ to an A+? We played a lot of Fortnite, got a lot of sick dubs, got my new season victory umbrella. Like, this is absolutely ridiculous, and the fact that they were urging you to consider it is nuts. If I were you, I would switch schools. I do not want to be dealing with this at all. I also love when people pull the whole, "I pay taxes, so I'm paying your salary." It's like, yeah, but that's not really how it works. I mean, technically, sure, you're giving money to the government, but they pool it and then distribute it to all these services. So you're actually paying like 0.001% of this salary. I don't really know if that means you get to boss them around like that. I taught English in China, mostly university level, but I also worked at a tutoring school for high schoolers. This one kid's mother demanded that my student, who was 14, write a 10-page paper every day. One every freaking day. My hours spent tutoring him was always spent going over his paper and telling him where he needed to stop repeating himself, where personal anecdotes weren't appropriate, and where I could tell the anecdotes were totally made up. I tried telling him that some of the prompts he chose didn't need more than 3 or 4 pages, and I tried pleading with him to stop writing when he said everything he needed to say, not when he hit the 10th page. But his mom, who spoke no language beside her native tongue, would punish him if he didn't write 10 pages. Withholding food, beating him, all that nasty crap. So his writing quality got worse and worse as he prepared for his English exam to finish high school in the US, because he never learned how to write with quality, only quantity. I sent him home with a big note to his mom about why what she was doing was going to cause him to fail his exams, and she came to school to scream at me about how I was a terrible teacher and had no idea what American schools needed. He failed the exam, which surprised nobody at the center, but his mother beat him and he was pulled out of school for a couple weeks. What sucked the most is that there aren't laws against that sort of thing, and there's nothing I could do about it but work with the center to get him more hours there. I still think about him and hope he eventually got out of the country and away from his parents. I don't know what the laws in other places are, but that definitely should be illegal if it is not already. I'm not educated enough to speak on it further than that. But that being said, this is a horrible way to get your kid to want to learn things. Are you serious? Just punish them and make them go way overboard? If there was any passion that they had for learning English, it's definitely 100% gone now. If that's how my parents were forcing me to learn something, I would just start to hate it out of like rebellion at that point, man. My girlfriend is a teacher and she tells me of the horrible meetings she has with parents, and the ones that stick out are aggressive parents who think she's lying about their children missing or not doing work. My girlfriend's incredibly well organized and there may be an accident here and there, but your girl missing 10 assignments is not the teacher losing things. If you need to physically intimidate someone, you're messed up, especially when it's a 5'4" woman. She has 3 sets of parents that need to have administration in the room to supervise them because they try to bully her. When my grandma worked in a school, she said these were the worst parents that come in and are just insistent that the problem is 1000% not their kid when their kid is just the problem. Like their kid will stab someone with scissors. Well, who made them angry while they had scissors in their hands? That's the culprit here. There's no way little Johnny failed math. He's too smart for that. Hey Johnny, what's 4 plus 4? 11 Like just the most random things ever, bro, but they're insistent it's gotta be everyone else's fault. I feel like this is just what happens when Karens try to fight the school. On the bright side, I feel like teachers are getting more and more rights to be able to argue back with the parents. But how nuts to try to physically intimidate a teacher into saying the assignments aren't missing. And how embarrassing that the teacher is like, hey, I need administration to sit in here because you're just such an angry person. Last year, we had a very angry parent of a young lady who was enrolled in Running Start here at the college who was being lied to by his daughter in an effort to hide the fact she was not going to class. For those of you who don't know, Running Start is a state-funded opportunity for high school students to finish high school with college credits that apply to their college transcripts. The young lady was telling her father that she was doing extremely well in her 2 classes she was enrolled in, but naturally, her grades at the end of the quarter suggested otherwise. Dad got mad and would frequently call the instructors in question and their respective deans in a fit of total fury, threatening lawsuits if he was not given answers as to why they were failing his angelic child in all of her classes. However, since this was a college, we can't just release any of the information. Not even because her attendance blows, unless a waiver is signed by the student, and that pissed him off even more. Eventually, he gets directed to my office, and I'm no instructor, but one of the hats I wear here is being the one who gets to deal with all the angry formal complaints once the instructor and dean can no longer handle it. That said, people are usually quite livid by the time they get to me, and this man called me at least once or twice every day in an attempt to get in touch with the vice president. The president, you name it. He called me awful things, yelled and slurred with his accent beyond comprehension, and complained about how our crappy education system for ages. And it was my job to listen every day. And all the while, I have to repeatedly remind him that I can't tell him anything about his daughter's time here because it's an ethical violation when there's no waiver on file. But heaven forbid he take no for an answer. He started coming onto the campus and stalking the instructors by waiting at their offices and attempting to confront the dean in person. Each time, we told him we couldn't release personal information unless his kids signed the waiver. Eventually, security got involved and he was banned from the campus, and my supervisor told me after the fact she found out that his daughter had actually been removed from a sister college prior to her enrollment. Apparently, the dad had been stalking instructors for the same reasons, and they believed him to be a serious threat. Listen, I know no parent wants to believe that their kid is lying to them, but I promise you, if your kid has gotten out of 2 schools because they're failing and each time it's been totally not their fault, it's probably time to look at them and be like, alright, it's definitely at least a little bit your fault, right? Also, how frightening that he had been removed from 1 college already for stalking the instructors. I'm glad the boss didn't release that information while all this was still going on. Oh, by the way, you know that angry guy that keeps coming in here? Yeah, he's known to be a violent stalker. That's just the last thing you want to tell everyone while it's going on. Do you have no shame, though? Like, if you've been banned from 2 colleges for stalking teachers, do you not want to reevaluate how you've been handling everything? If you don't like the way I teach, why don't you complain to someone about it? So today at work, we were talking about my rather bad handwriting, and it reminded me that perhaps the proudest moment of my life could be considered malicious compliance. If it's not, I apologize, but the reason I'm posting this is I did what I did with the intention to get my teacher in trouble, which worked in the long term, but I did not expect it to follow the events that happened. The story's quite long, and I apologize for that. This took place 19 years ago when I was in middle school. I had and still have a disability that prevents me from writing legibly. However, my parents quickly learned I had an insane typing speed, and as a result, my ADHD psychologist and parents got me an AlphaSmart word processor for my 5th grade Christmas present. It would be an understatement to say this was a life changer. My assignments became so much easier. I knew the stuff but couldn't write it down, and my attitude about school changed. I became the hip popular kid at school for having a fancy piece of cutting edge technology, and none of my teachers between 5th and 7th grade had an issue with this and were impressed by the technology. Mind you, word processors weren't new, but seeing them in schools was unheard of at that point as they were quite expensive. This changed in 8th grade with Mrs. Grump. Mrs. Grump was your traditional old woman who looked like my great-great-grandmother. Gray hair, wrinkles upon wrinkles, a bead necklace that reached past her breast, flower print outfits, and clip-on earrings. Seriously, she was one bobbed hairdo away from being Karen's grandmother. The first day I took my word processor out, she was on my back. Anytime she saw me with it, she would threaten to take it from me and reduce my marks for the class. I recall myself standing up for myself the first time, but I was never one to argue with the teachers, and I never needed to because my teachers, up until then, were understanding. When she said no, I backed off. At that point, school became miserable for me. When I typed up my assignments, Miss Grump lowered my marks for not being handwritten. Anytime I asked her if I could stay after class to finish or finish writing down my notes, she would lower my marks on the next assignment for wasting her time. Anytime I asked a friend for help in class, you guessed it, she'd lower my marks. Luckily, as most of my fellow students understood my problem, a group of them approached me and offered to help. They started offering me their notes each evening so I could bring them home and photocopy so I could keep up with everything. We also hung out in the library at lunches and they helped me with my handwriting so it could be at the very least legible, allowing me to write out my homework despite it taking a long time. I genuinely don't know what her problem was, but she began reducing my marks because of poor handwriting and inspecting my binders to make sure I wasn't stealing people's work, and if she found photocopied notes, she would lower my marks. This was ridiculous as none of my classmates were marked in such a way. Now, as explained, I'm not one to question authority. Despite being miserable with Miss Grump's attitude, I quietly accepted that I would probably fail. Unfortunately, I don't remember why my parents didn't help, but I think it might have been due to my older brother being a part of Mrs. Grump's in the past, and they thought I was being overdramatic. With the background out of the way, let's get to the compliance. I don't know what happened this particular day, but I had a sudden surge of confidence. It was a bad day, and I remember we were doing an assignment involving microscopes in class. We needed to describe what we saw, and instinctively I brought out my word processor. I put it on the table, looked down into the microscope, and when I came back up, Miss Grump was standing there with the word processor in her hands. I am confiscating this and throwing it away. But I need it. It's expensive. Too bad. I've warned you many times not to bring it out in my class, and you didn't listen, and these are the consequences. At this point, she put it in her cabinet unit and shut the door. Everyone in class was silent, and Miss Grump sat back down, and some of my classmates tried to calm me down as I was crying. Miss Grump didn't care. In particular, I recall one of the students who usually bullied me trying to cheer me up, and we'll call him Jim from now on, and Jim now works as a coach at a gym now. It didn't work on the assignment, and when Miss Grump came to take my blank sheet, she scoffed. If you don't like the way I teach, why don't you complain to someone about it? I left the classroom defeated, but to my surprise, during lunch, Jim came up to me with my word processor in hand. He stole it out of the teacher's cabinet while she was returning the microscopes to the lab, and he told me he was going to keep it in his locker till after school when he'll return it. That way I wouldn't get in more trouble when she finds it missing. It was at that moment when I snapped. I don't know what it was. Maybe the fact the person who had bullied me for so long was the one helping me, but I wanted Miss Grump gone. But what was I gonna do? Well, complain to someone, of course. She is the teacher, and it's not like me to disobey the teacher. In any other situation, I don't think this would have worked, but I got lucky in regards to the events that followed this decision. So myself and Jim went to the school principal during lunch, and me and the principal up to this point had never officially met as she had just started at the school this year after the previous principal retired. We are going to call the principal Miss Awesome, and Miss Awesome was eating at her desk and was surprised to be interrupted. Though she did sigh when she saw Jim, I know for a fact those two were well acquainted. I think she thought the two of us had gotten a fight, so she asked me to sit down and Jim to wait outside. I started explaining to her what happened in class, and after she realized Jim wasn't to blame, she called him back in to support my story. When I mentioned the word processor, her eyes lit up. Despite her never formally talking before, it was clear she knew who I was. The discussion shifted to the word processor itself, and she asked me to go over its functions and everything. I showed her I could type, transfer the files to a computer, and then print it off or email it. The typing tutorials loaded on it, and I explained why I needed it and showed her my handwriting and how I'd relied on it since 5th grade. She and Jim seemed quite interested in it, taking notes and everything. And at the end of the impromptu tutorial that lasted, Miss Awesome thanked me and had us step out for a moment. After she brought me back in, she explained to me there was nothing she could do at this point in time, and she gave me an out-of-school suspension for a week. She explained I was not in trouble at all and it wasn't being marked against me, and the explanation she gave was for stealing out of the teacher's cabinet, though I wasn't required to return the process. This also got Jim out of trouble as well, which he was thankful for, and Miss Awesome said that everything will be taken care of next week when I return, and she'll contact my parents explaining the situation. The week I was off, Jim was coming by and dropping off his homework so I could photocopy it and not fall behind. Quite frankly, I thought he just wanted me to do the work for him at first, as it was a complete 180 on how he used to treat me, but we became good friends after this happened. Even asking him today, he doesn't recall why he started treating me better after Miss Grump took the processor. During those days, my parents were on the phone constantly. I wasn't aware of what was going on, but they bought me a new game, bought takeout a lot, and genuinely I felt pampered. My parents came in with me when I returned, but rather than to the classroom, I was brought to the school board room instead, where a bunch of people in suits were located. My family doctor and ADHD psychologist were also in attendance, which shocked me, and Mr. Awesome, or Mrs. Awesome, explained to me that these were representatives for the school board and that they were extremely interested in my word processor. In hindsight, it was a bit of a move for no one to inform me I was being brought in front of the school board to present my word processor, but I began explaining it like I did to Miss Awesome, showing the different functions and such. After I finished, my family doctor and psychologist gave a better explanation than what I gave as to why I needed it and how it helped, and it ended with my parents explaining it changed education and how I enjoyed school. Honestly, I don't recall the immediate response, but a day later, Miss Awesome explained everything to me. Apparently, she was actually a sitting member on the school board who had been standing in for the principal that year until they found a replacement. And when I showed her the word processor, she saw the potential that it had to help students such as her own daughter who had similar circumstances to me. She contacted the school board about investigating some word processors for each school in the district, but they wanted to see it first. Again, it was a new concept, all things considered. And that was why she needed me that day and why she allowed me to stay home for the week, as there was no rule in place to protect the processor from being confiscated and possibly destroyed. I still question why I was never informed of the meeting, but whatever. Anyways, due to the presentation, I was given permission to continue working on my word processor, and much to Miss Grump's dismay. She was also required to adjust all previous marks removed for her deductions. Meanwhile, the school board decided on ordering 5 to 8 word processors for each school in the district for next year, this school getting 8 as it was a larger school, and students in what was called the resource class, which was a class for students who needed extra attention, had the option to sign out a word processor for the day to help with their in-school assignments. There was an altogether increase in the resource students' marks as a result of the change, I've been told, and the school board began looking into other ways to help students. But what about Miss Grump? Other than having to just readjust my marks and allowing me to use the word processor, she got off scot-free. It's great and all, I made a huge difference in my school district, but how old Miss Grump got her just desserts for making 8th grade a living hell for me. I don't know if it was a mere coincidence, or outside interference, or just a parting gift from Miss Awesome after she returned to her position in the school board, but all resource students coming into the 8th grade had been assigned to Miss Grump's class next year, and as a result, they were signing out the word processor constantly in her class. I learned this because my 9th grade class was right across the hall from her room, and windows in the classroom allowed me to look in and always see 4 to 6 students typing up a storm on their processors. This came to a head, however, when Miss Grump took one of them and threw it out the window. After that, she was asked to retire halfway through the year and replaced with the sweetest teacher that held ice cream parties for the students that completed all their assignments each month. And that, everyone, is probably the proudest moment in my life. Not only did my actions result in students with disabilities getting more resources to help them, but I also watched the worst teacher I ever had getting escorted out of the school by security. All of that fighting and threatening to break electronics, throwing things out the window just to be forced into a retirement, like, it just doesn't seem worth it. I understand that some people hate technology. Maybe I'm slowly turning into a boomer. I don't get a lot of the super new stuff either. That being said, you've just got to accept the fact that technology is going to keep on marching, even if you stop paying attention, and fighting it is pretty futile. I'll never get one of those newfangled word processors. Yeah. Do you think she spent the rest of her retirement she was forced into avoiding technology, or do you think she hopped on Facebook as soon as possible and became the equivalent of an MLG gamer for Farmville? I'm gonna assume the latter. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, please be sure to press the like button. Let me know in the comment section down below what you thought. This was a longer video. I'm trying to do the longer ones. That's why they're taking a little longer, you know. But I'm gonna try to do like 30-40 minute ones from now on. So if you like that, like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff. And while I've got your attention, definitely head over to the Storytime channel and check that out. I've got longer videos popping up over on there too. And yeah, on that note, guys, that'll really do it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.